So page number 112, you take page number 112. Page number 112. One second, I'll just share the screen. Yes. Search, seizure and confiscation under GST. So this is our agenda for discussion right now. And as usual, if you have any queries related to this topic while I am discussing, you just post it. I'll complete this, and if you have any queries, I'll just discuss that. See, the search, seizure and confiscation, as well as offences, penalties and prosecution, these two areas are some untapped areas. So if at all ICAI wanted to give this attempt GST paper as difficult, they can touch from these areas mainly. So that's the reason why I have taken these areas first for discussion. So search and seizure will happen in two situations. So what are those two situations? Number one, whenever the officer conducts the search in the premises. So in the business premises, they will be conducting the search, and if they identify any goods or documents containing the details of the goods liable for confiscation, they will pass a seizure order to seize that goods and the documents. Whereas situation 2, when the goods are in transit and that goods are liable for confiscation. First of all, when the goods are liable for confiscation, if you have not accounted that goods into the accounts and records, and if you try to supply without invoice, or if you try to transport those goods without valid documents, then these goods are liable for confiscation. So in other words, unaccounted goods will be coming under goods liable for confiscation. And that unaccounted goods may be at the business premises or that may be in the transit. So therefore search will be conducted in two places, section 67 and section 68. These are the two sections that you need to know. Section 67 deals with search in the business premises. Section 68 deals with search in the transit. Okay, 67 and 68. 67 deals with search in the business premises. 68 deals with search in the transit. So during this search in the business premises or in the transit, they may identify some goods liable for confiscation. They may identify some goods liable for confiscation. So whatever goods that they have identified which are liable for confiscation, what they will do, first they will seize those goods. Okay, first they will seize those goods. After seizing those goods, then these goods will be confiscated. So the first step is search. The first step is search, and the second step is seizure, and the third step is confiscation. So okay, three steps are there. Okay, so search will be conducted in the business premises or in the transit. Thereafter, if they identify the goods liable for confiscation, in situation 1, that is search in the business premises, they will pass a seizure order to seize the goods and seize the documents containing the details of the goods. Okay, documents are things. Things includes pen drive, hard disk, etc. And then second situation, search in the transit, and when they identify the goods which are liable for confiscation, not only the goods but also the conveyance for which they will pass a seizure order. So seizure means what? Taking the possession. So when the possession moves on from the person to the department, it is known as seizure. And what is confiscation? Ownership also will be with the department. That is known as confiscation. So when they conduct the search, they will do the seizure. And in case of situation 1, so that situation 1, inspection will be carried out at the business premise of the registered person or transporter or warehouse keeper, and they identify some goods liable for confiscation, and such goods are seized. That goods are seized. Seizure from the place of business. Whereas in section, one second. So it is audible, Nayar. Hope it is visible to all of you. Okay. So situation 1, inspection was carried out at the business premise of the registered person, transporter or warehouse keeper. And situation 2, conveyance carrying out the goods intercepted by the proper officer. If you see the difference in section 67, actually situation 1 is 67 and situation 2, search. Power to search is given in 68. So power to search in situation 1, power to search is given in section 67, whereas here power to search is given in section 68. Okay, so power to search is given in 67 and here power to search is given in section 68. Okay, and this power, when they exercise, they will pass a seizure order. So as per section 67, seizure from the place of business, here seizure in transit. You understood the difference. But the seizure order, when it comes to seizure order, that automatically enters into another section, that is section 129. Whereas in the first situation, completely that is section 67 only. The entire provisions related to the situation 1 is given in section 67. Whereas the confiscation alone is in section 130. So there are two situations in this search, seizure and confiscation chapter. So the two situations are search, seizure and confiscation the business premises, search, seizure and confiscation with respect to the conveyance which is in the transit. So situation 1 sections you need to remember, section 67 and section 130, that's it. Whereas for situation 2 we have 3 sections, section 68, section 129 and section 130. 68 deals with power to search and section 129 deals with seizure and section 130 deals with confiscation. So seizure means the possession will be taken away by the department. Confiscation means the ownership also will be taken by the department. So now I am discussing first situation. So what happens in the first situation? They conduct a search in the business premises. They identify some goods which are liable for confiscation and they will seize from the place of business. So they will pass a seizure order for seizing the goods, documents and things. Now there are two options which are given. We are still in situation 1. They will give two options. Who will give two options? Department will give two options. What are the two options? Option number 1. You can pay the tax, penalty and the goods will be released. You can pay the appropriate tax and penalty, the goods will be released. So why I should pay tax now? I don't want to pay tax. I am not selling it. I just unaccounted the goods. Why should I pay tax? Okay, don't pay tax. Now option 2. You execute a bond, then only we will release the goods. Otherwise we will not release the goods. So department gives two options. Option number 1, pay tax plus penalty so that the goods will be released. All the proceedings are concluded. So whenever you actually sell the goods, you don't have to pay GST because these goods already you paid the GST. This is number 1. Number 2, option number 2. You don't want to pay GST because you are not selling it. You are not selling it. Okay, super. Don't pay GST. Just execute a bond that you will be paying GST and penalty as and when the goods are sold. Why penalty? You have unaccounted the goods. So penalty you need to pay. And therefore, so you are going to pay the tax and penalty in future. So right now you execute a bond. We will release the goods. Whenever you sell that goods, you pay the tax and penalty. That is option 2. But in case of option 2, the proceedings are not concluded because the proceedings will continue. We just executed the bond. The goods are released on a provisional basis. So option 1 is final release. Option 2 is provisional release. So option 1, pay appropriate amount and get the goods released. Pay applicable tax, interest, penalty and the goods shall be released. All the proceedings in this aspect will be deemed to be concluded. Okay, sir. Here interest will not arise because first of all there is no liability to pay tax, so interest will not arise. I am just giving you for reference the interest if any, but interest usually will not arise. It will be only tax and penalty, and the penalty will be payable under section 122 subsection 1. So 122 subsection 1 we have some list of offences for which the penalty is applicable. Penalty will be 100% of the tax or 10,000 rupees, whichever is higher will be taken as the penalty. So which penalty? Penalty under section 122 subsection 1. Okay. So we need to pay penalty. We need to pay penalty and that penalty will be in terms of. So in this case we need to pay the penalty and that penalty will be in terms of section 122 subsection 1 penalty, that is 100% of the tax or 10,000 rupees, whichever is higher. Okay. And option 2 is what? Provisional release of goods by executing a bond covering the value of the goods. So when we execute the bond, the goods will be released, but proceedings are not completed. And whenever we actually sell the goods, we need to pay the GST and applicable penalty on that. Okay. So these are the two options. What if I am not exercising both the options? Department gave me these two options, I am not exercising both the options. Then after giving an opportunity of being heard, they will be passing a confiscation order. But still you have an option. This is third option called as redemption fine. Option 1, pay tax and penalty, goods will be released. Option 2, execute a bond, the goods will be released so that you pay the tax and penalty in future. Option number 3 is still there, that is redemption fine. Now not only tax and penalty but also redemption fine you need to pay now. So apart from tax and penalty, redemption fine is extra. So because you did not exercise the option before passing the confiscation order. So once the confiscation order is passed, still you have an option that is known as redemption option, and you need to exercise this option and pay the redemption fine and get the goods released within 3 months. So option to redeem the goods by paying fine within 3 months. Okay. Suppose if you pay that fine here, so then the goods will be released here. And what is that redemption fine? So what is the maximum redemption fine? Market value of the goods as reduced by tax chargeable thereon. Okay. Maximum redemption fine equals to market value of the goods minus tax chargeable thereon. So that will be the maximum redemption fine. So please try to understand. So when you are writing in exam, don't write that redemption fine equal to market price of the goods minus tax. It is a maximum redemption fine, means up to that extent they can levy redemption fine. Okay. So this is for the purpose of goods, and if you pay that fine, the goods will be released. Suppose what will happen if you are not paying that fine also? So you did not exercise option 1, you did not exercise option 2, and option 3, that is redemption option, you did not exercise. So then the goods will be taken away by the department. They will sell that goods, realize the money, will not pay 1 rupee also to you. So which means completely that goods is gone from your hands. So whenever the option is not opted, confiscated goods shall be disposed of. So this is in case of situation 1. So mainly in situation 1, there could be a question on computation of redemption fine or the penalty, or maybe a theory question could be asked as to what is the process to be followed. Just remember this process. And in case of situation 2, what is situation 2? That is, they are stopping the goods which are in the transit. When they stop the vehicle which are in the transit and they verify that goods are liable for confiscation because those goods are being transported without valid documents, then these goods are liable for confiscation. So they will pass a seizure order under section under section 129 to seize not only the goods but also the conveyance. So order for seizure of the goods and conveyance shall be passed. Now again, two options are available, just like situation 1 only. So what are the two options? Option number 1, so final release. You pay the tax and penalty so that the goods will be released. Okay, but within 15 days of seizure you need to make the payment. And in case of perishable goods, it can be reduced for a period less than 14 days also. So once they pass the seizure order, from there within 14 days if you pay this amount, so then the goods will be released and all the proceedings will be concluded. Again here, so why should I pay? I am not supplying, I am not selling, the goods are not sold. So when the goods are not sold, why I need to pay GST? Then option 2 you have. What is that option 2? Provisional release by executing a bond. But still the proceedings are not concluded. So whenever the sale happens, at the time you need to pay the tax and penalty. Okay. So therefore this is just like the previous case, situation 1 only, but only the penalty will be different. Here the penalty is not 122 subsection 1 penalty. Here the penalty is separately determined under section 129. You need to pay tax, no doubt you need to pay tax, but the penalty is not in terms of 122 subsection 1. What is 122 subsection 1 penalty? 100% of the tax or 10,000, whichever is higher. But that penalty is not applicable in this case. In this case it is 129 penalty. And 129 penalty we have two cases. If owner of the goods come forward, if owner of the goods is not coming forward to claim release. So there are two divisions. So what is the meaning of owner coming forward, owner not coming forward? If owner is not coming forward, then who will claim the release? The transporter will come forward to claim the release. If owner is coming forward to claim the release, the penalty will be 100% of the tax payable. So we need to pay tax, whatever is due, plus penalty which is equals to 100% of the tax payable when owner is coming forward. And if it is exempted goods, why in case of exempted goods, goods are liable for confiscation? Because exempted goods also should have a proper document called as bill of supply. So if you are not at all having any document with respect to the goods, even then the goods are liable for confiscation. But here in this case, thank God, it is not huge penalty. It is just like your general penalty under section 125, which is up to 25,000 rupees. But how it is given is in a different way, that is 2% of the value of the goods, or 25,000, whichever is lower. It's not whichever is higher, it's whichever is lower. So maximum penalty that you will pay in case of exempted goods will be 25,000, but that is 2% of the value of the goods transported, or 25,000, whichever is lower is the penalty that you need to pay if it is exempted goods. Again I am repeating, why in case of exempted goods there will be penalty, because these exempted goods should also accompany a bill of supply document, and if that exempted goods is not accompanying any document, then only this penalty will come into picture. Whereas if it is non-exempt goods, that is taxable goods, then you need to pay tax plus 100% of the tax, which will be payable as penalty. Okay. So this is if owner is coming forward. What if owner is not coming forward? Then who is coming forward? I told you transporter is coming forward to claim the release. In that case, the penalty is not the same. There is a different penalty. So they need to pay tax with respect to such goods plus penalty, which is equals to 50% of the value of goods. But there are two views in this place. Okay, there are two views in this place. And the two views I am just giving you, and you can decide which view to be followed. Okay, so in respect of section 129, in respect of section 129 penalty, okay, section 129, owner not coming forward, owner not coming forward. When owner is not coming forward, there are two views for computing the penalty. Okay, so tax and penalty, tax and penalty payable. Okay, so view 1, what is it? View 1, you pay the tax. Okay, so you pay the tax, tax payable plus penalty is 50% of value minus tax paid. Okay, this is what you need to discharge, means this much you need to pay. Whereas another view is there, that is tax payable minus tax paid, tax payable minus tax paid, and penalty 50% of value, 50% of value. Actually both are correct, the end result will be same. Say tax payable 1 lakh and penalty 50% of the value, say 10 lakhs. So 10 lakhs plus 1 lakh minus tax already paid 2 lakhs. So therefore 10 minus tax payable is 1 lakh. So tax payable is 1 lakh and 50% of the value is 10 lakhs and tax already paid is 20,000. So which means 10 lakh 80,000. Even when you take view 2 also it will be the same. 1 lakh minus 20,000, 80,000 plus 10 lakhs. So that will be resulting into 10 lakh 80,000 only. But the main problem will happen when the question is only asking about penalty. If the question is about what is the total amount that is payable, then we will be following any view. Both views are correct only. But the question is asked only about penalty, then which view needs to be taken? So we need to take view 1 or view 2. Okay, so please listen, follow view 2 only. Okay, so view 2 only should be followed, view 2 only should be followed. Okay, view 1 need not be followed. For exam purpose, when they are asking what is the total amount that is payable, the total amount that is payable will be same whether you follow view 1 or view 2. But when they are asking only about penalty, you follow view 2, that is 50% of the value. Here what is the meaning? Which means that the tax payable here refers to, so whatever is the gross tax minus tax already paid, so that should be taken as the tax payable, and penalty will be 50% of value of the goods. Understood? And in the note you write view 1. So you take view 2 for exam, whereas view 1 you write it in note. Okay, in note you need to write view 1. Understood or not? So that even if the key answer, because ICI has taken both the views. In one question they followed view 1, another question they followed view 2. So why to have this confusion? So that's the reason why you follow view 2 and you write view 1 as a note in the answer, please. Okay. So that is with respect to this. When owner is not coming forward, if you see the penalty when owner is not coming forward is more than the penalty when owner is coming forward. This is because of the simple reason that when owner is not coming forward, they wanted to identify the owner of the goods. That's the reason why there is more penalty when owner is not coming forward, when transporter is coming forward. That's a simple reason. Okay. So tax payable plus penalty is 50% of the value of goods. What if it is exempted goods? There, if owner is coming forward 2% or 25,000, whichever is lower. Here it is 5% or 25,000, whichever is lower. But still it is lower. So maximum will be 25,000 rupees only. So if at all you get any question on this such seizure, so the first priority will be in this section 129 computation of penalty only. Okay. So therefore this you please remember, and from May 22 exam onwards, this area there is a change. So completely this area is going to change from May 22 exam onwards. So that's the reason why there is a chance of asking question for this attempt. Okay. Then option 2, provisional release. What is this provisional release? You furnish the security bond and thereafter the goods will be released, and depending upon who is coming forward, that much amount they need to execute the bond with security. So bond is for value of the goods always, whereas security is for the amount equivalent to above, which means this amount, penalty, tax and penalty. So bond is for value of the goods, security is for this amount. So the security will change. If owner is coming forward, so this will be the security amount. Whereas if owner is not coming forward, this will be the security amount. Bond is different from security. Bond is like a stamp paper they will execute, but security is sufficient bank guarantee or any other security should be provided. Okay. Then suppose if these two options are not exercised by the person, so then in that case it leads to confiscation. So what happens in confiscation? They will pass a confiscation order and they will give an option to redeem. But important point is that the redemption fine needs to be paid both separately by transporter and the owner. So up to this point of time, up to this confiscation, if owner come forward and pay, both goods and conveyance will be released. If transporter come forward and pay, both goods and conveyance will be released. Whereas once a confiscation order is passed, the redemption fine should be paid separately by the owner and the transporter. Okay. So what is the redemption fine for the owner of the goods? The redemption fine is market value of the goods minus tax chargeable thereon. This is the maximum redemption fine. Whereas what is the redemption fine for the transporter? So whatever is the GST payable in respect of those goods which are transported, which are liable for confiscation. So tax payable with respect to those goods is the redemption fine. Please see here. So redemption fine in case of conveyance to owner of conveyance is tax payable on goods transported thereon. This is redemption fine in case of goods. Okay. So apart from tax penalty, that person, owner of the goods, should pay redemption fine also. Okay. And there is one point that is given. Total of the penalty and redemption fine cannot be less than penalty leviable under section 129. So that is, this particular penalty and redemption fine should be more than the penalty under section 129, because if this is less than 129 penalty, then no one will exercise 129 and they will directly go for 130 redemption fine. So they don't want that to happen. So but that is common sense. Definitely 129 will be less than the redemption fine. You understood or not? So this point is not having that much of impact. So you just remember, so if you are exercising option 1 or option 2, you have to pay tax plus penalty, and if you are going for redemption fine, extra redemption fine is payable apart from tax and penalty. Is it clear? So this is with respect to search, seizure and confiscation. So you will get in this area mainly problems involving computation of penalty under 129 and redemption fine computation, nothing else. These two type of questions only can be asked from this. Okay. Then the next area that we are moving on to is offences, penalties and prosecution. Okay. So this is little bit bigger one compared to search, seizure and confiscation. So you can see in the next page, page number 114. There are few sections, section 122, 123, 124, 125, which deals with certain offences for which the penalties are applicable. Okay. In that, the major one is section 122 subsection 1. This 122 subsection 1 gives list of offences. Some 21 offences are listed out. With respect to these 21 offences, the penalty will be 100% of the tax or ITC, tax involved or ITC or refund or TDS or TCS depending upon the offence, or 10,000 whichever is higher. Suppose if it is a erroneous refund, offence related to erroneous refund, you should not get the refund but you got the refund, then it will be 100% of the refund or 10,000 whichever is higher. If it is TDS or TCS related default, then 100% of the TDS TCS defaulted or 10,000 whichever is higher. And very importantly, you need to remember, so whatever penalties that we have discussed so far is equally applicable under CGST Act as well as SGST Act. What I am discussing is only CGST Act. For example, in this case, if 50% of the value of goods is the penalty, that is under CGST Act. Means sir, under SGST Act also 50% of the value of goods? Yes, it will be there. But in exam, you write only penalties related to CGST Act. So in exam, you please make yourself clear that you are writing the penalty related to CGST Act only. Even questions also will be asked related to that. Suppose if they are giving IGST, what you need to do? That IGST tax you need to break it into two. The IGST tax, whatever is given in the question, suppose in the question they give GST. So then you take the assumption that the question GST is about CGST. You take the assumption and you write. If the question talks about IGST, so then you break that IGST into two parts, CGST, SGST, and take only CGST. For example, say take penalty 100% of the tax or 10,000 whichever is higher, correct, that is the penalty. And the tax given in the question, GST 20,000. So now what you need to do, it is assumed that the GST given in the question is CGST. Therefore, the penalty under section 122 subsection 1 shall be A, 100% of the tax, that equals to 20,000, or B, 10,000 rupees, whichever is higher, that is 20,000 is the penalty. Understood or not? Suppose if the question says about IGST, when it is IGST 20,000, when it say IGST 30,000, when IGST is given as 30,000, now you need to write penalty payable under section 122 subsection 1 of CGST Act shall be A, 100% of such tax, that is 15,000, not, don't take 30,000, take 15,000 or 10,000, whichever is higher, 15,000. You know why I am telling this? What if IGST is given as 14,000? What you will do? 14,000 or 10,000, whichever is higher, you will write as 14,000. But actually there is a mistake, because 14,000 divided into 2, 7,000, 7,000. So under CGST Act, 7,000 or 10,000, whichever is higher is 10,000. And SGST Act also, 7,000 or 10,000, whichever is higher will be 10,000. So the penalty will be 20,000. It's not 14,000. So when you directly apply IGST, you will be ending up with a mistake. So that's the reason why I am asking you to follow for CGST, SGST separately only the computation should be made. And if you show only CGST computation, that is sufficient. Okay. Unless otherwise, if they are specifically asking CGST as well as SGST, you show both the computations. Done. So then, so what are those offences, sir? What are those offences? These offences, 21 offences, are listed with a easy way to remember. Bio discredits TFT. B for books of accounts default. So what you need to try to understand is, just listen now, and in exam you will not be asked, write what are all the offences under 120 subsection 1. You will not get such kind of question. They will give a situation and they will ask you whether penalty is payable in this case. So we need to check whether that situation comes under 120 subsection 1. If that situation comes under 120 subsection 1, then yes, you need to compute the penalty. So that's the reason why here, rather than by hearting, you try to understand what it is. Okay. So B for books of accounts default. Books of accounts default means what will come. So there will be non-maintenance of books of accounts, or maintenance of false books of accounts or fake books of accounts, that will be covered under this offense. B for books of accounts default. I for invoice default. What is invoice default? I am making a supply without invoice, or I gave invoice but I did not make supply, resulting in ITC for the recipient. You understood? I am giving an invoice without making any supply so that the recipient can enjoy the ITC. Okay, so that is also invoice default. Or invoice with incorrect details. So some wrong details are mentioned, so that is also invoice default. So in invoice default there are three things. So supply without invoice, and supply with incorrect invoice, or invoice without supply. Done. And O, obstructing an officer from doing duty. One officer is coming for the search, you kicked him, and so therefore that is known as obstructing an officer from doing duty. You are not allowing him to come and do the search. That is also an offense. Then D for dealing in goods liable for confiscation. So there are some goods which are liable for confiscation. You know that these goods are liable for confiscation, but you are dealing with those goods. That is, you are purchasing and selling those goods which are liable for confiscation. That is offense. Okay. Then I for input service distributor default. So what ISDs will do, they will be taking some credits and they will distribute the credits to the branches by giving ISD invoice. So this is known as ISD default, input service distributor default. PIODIS. Yes is supply with GSTN of another person. You got the GSTN of some person. If you search for sample GSTN, lot of GSTNs you will get in Google. So you are taking that GSTN and you are making an invoice and you are giving it to the recipient and you are collecting the money. So this is known as supply with GSTN of some other person. Okay. So all these when they identify, okay. So they will be levying a penalty. And C for collected tax not deposited within 3 months, collected an amount as tax not deposited within 3 months. So both are covered here. What is the difference? I am supposed to collect tax. I collected the tax, but I did not pay within 3 months. That is the first one. Second, I am not supposed to collect the tax, but I collected representing it as tax. I am an unregistered person. I am not supposed to collect the tax, but what I did, I gave one invoice and I collected the tax. This is known as collected an amount as tax. Or I am making an exempted supply. I am not supposed to collect tax on that exempted supply, but I collected it. So that is also amount collected as tax. And then I need to collect only 5%, but I collected 12%. So this 7%, whatever is extra collected, is known as collected an amount as tax. Okay. So either collected tax not deposited within 3 months, or collected an amount as tax and not deposited within 3 months. So these two are offences under C. Okay. So that leads to penalty. What is the penalty? 122 subsection 1, 100% of the tax or 10,000, whichever is higher. Okay. Then R for registration related default. Is there any timeline when the confiscation order will be passed? See, right now there is no time limit, but in the updated provisions, they have given a time limit for passing the order. Okay. So right now there is no time limit. So within 14 days you need to pay is only given under option 1. So which means that if you are not paying within 14 days, logically immediately after that they will be passing the confiscation order. That's how we need to understand. Okay. So because as such there is no specific provision which talks about the time limit for confiscation order. So but there is a time limit which is given that 14 days you need to make the payment. So which means that after 14 days from the date when seizure takes place, so they will be passing the confiscation order, and once they pass the confiscation order, within 3 months you need to make the payment. So that is the answer for your query, Ashish. And now I am coming back to this. R for registration related default. What is registration related default? Not getting registration. You are liable to get registered, but you not got registered, or giving false information for registration. Okay. So you gave the fake details and you got the registration. That is known as registration related default. Very important point. Please remember that in case of amendment in registration, you need to submit the details of amendment, correct? So change in name of business, or change in bank details, change in mobile number, change in email, or change in top management, or change in karta, or change in address, etc. These details you need to give in the amendment in registration. So we are not giving the details of amendment in registration. So at the time originally when we have applied, there is an address, and thereafter we relocated to a different place, but the change in address we did not inform. Will it come under registration default? No. So it is not registration default. Registration default is like at the time when we obtain the registration, if we give fake details, that is false details, that is only called as registration default. Whereas if you are required to get registered and not got registered, that is also registration default. So not giving the changes, not intimating the changes will not be called as registration default, but that is an offense. That is an offense. You change the address, you did not intimate it to the department, that's an offense, but not coming under 122 subsection 1, that is an offense for which no separate penalty is prescribed. So the general penalty under section 125 is applicable. So try to remember that there is a general penalty when there is no specific offense for which penalty is given. So then the general penalty will be applicable, which will be up to 25,000 rupees. So in this case, failure to furnish the changes in the registration leads to general penalty under 125 but not under this section 122 subsection 1. Okay. Then we have E for erroneous refund. You are not supposed to get the refund, but you got the refund. For example, you already claimed duty drawback on import of goods IGST paid. You already claimed duty drawback upon export. Again under GST you are claiming refund of unutilized ITC. So in that case you are getting an erroneous refund. So like that, when you are not supposed to get the refund but you got the refund, that is known as erroneous refund. That is also an offence. Then D, disposal of goods while detention or seizure is operational. See, there is an alternative to seizure that you need to understand called as detention or prohibition. That is, when it is practically not possible for the department to take possession, instead of passing a seizure order, already discussed, two situations, seizure order, when it is practically not possible to seize the goods, so what they will do, they will pass a detention order or a prohibition order, which means that you should not deal with those goods, you should not part with those goods, you should not remove or sell those goods. So that is known as detention or prohibition order. So that is an alternative to seizure. Okay, whatever is the importance that is given to the seizure, the same importance should be given to the detention. So when the goods are detained or seized, you are trying to dispose of those goods. That is an offence. So disposal of goods while detention or seizure is operational. Detention, the goods are with you. Seizure, the goods are with the department, but you are going to their premises, taking those goods and you are disposing it off. That is this. Then I for ITC default, biodiscredits, CREDI, that is ITC default. ITC default is what? Wrong availment and utilization of ITC. You are not supposed to take the credit but you took the credit, and that is known as ITC default. Then T, tampering material evidence. There is some material evidence which is available. Say a person, a registered person, whatever are the unaccounted goods, he made a list of that in a small book, and so department tried to take away that book. So but this person has caught that book and he tagged it and he has thrown. That is known as tampering material evidence. Or any other evidence which is available with the department. So this person tried to bribe the peon in the department or any other officer in the department and tried to tamper that material evidence. So that is also an offence. And then suppression of turnover. You cross the turnover but you are suppressing the turnover that you have not crossed and you are not getting registered. Then TDS or TCS default. So you are liable to deduct TDS, TCS but you have not deducted, but you deducted but not remitted. So that is an offence. Then failure to furnish information or documents. So they are asking us to submit some information but we did not furnish that information. And lastly T, transportation related default. That is, the goods are being transported without any accompanying documents like invoice or bill of supply, e-way bill. Then it is known as transportation related default. Okay, so these are the various offences that we have. Biodiscredits TFT, B for books of accounts default, I for invoice default, O for obstructing an officer from doing duty, D for dealing in goods liable for confiscation, I for ISD default, and S for supply with GSTN of some other person, C for collected a tax which is not paid within 3 months, collected an amount as tax which is not paid within 3 months, and R for registration related default, E for erroneous refund, then D for disposal of goods while detention or seizure is operational, then I for ITC default, and T for tampering material evidence, and S for suppression of turnover. Then last TFT. So T for TDS or TCS default, F for failure to supply information, and last T, transport related default. So these defaults, if you know, if you need, you don't have to by heart. Okay, you should just know, okay, these are all the defaults that we have. So now they will give a situation. So this situation will come in this list or not, you need to check. If the situation comes in this list, yes, penalty will be applicable under 122 subsection 1. And I am asking you to focus more onto this because for imprisonment also these offences are very much useful. Okay, so we have an imprisonment provision section 132. So far what we have seen is 122. So first we have discussed offences and penalties. Offences, penalties. Now second what we are going to discuss is offences, imprisonment. Okay, for that offences imprisonment also, so this will be useful. Okay, so that's why. So these are the offences that leads to penalty under 122 subsection 1. Now look into imprisonment provision that is given in section 132. That is given in section 132. So page number 116, 132. Biodiscredits TFT minus ISRDSTT. So these offences minus few offences plus attempt to commit or abetting commission of these offences leads to imprisonment. Okay, that's how it is connected. So before that, sir, is collected an amount as tax same as collected tax in contravention of the provisions of the act? Yes. So collected an amount as tax is same as collected tax in contravention of the provisions of tax. You are right. That is, you are not supposed to collect tax, but you collected it. Okay. And see this. First we need to take this biodiscredits TFT minus ISRDSTT and plus attempt to commit or abetting commission of these offences. Okay. So these offences leads to imprisonment. But ISRDSTT do not lead to imprisonment. What is I? So we have multiple I's. So one I is invoice default, another I is ISD default, yet another I is ISD default. So invoice default, ITC default, ISD default. But which will be taken here? So here I refers to ISD default. Okay, I refers to ISD default. Yes. So we have two yes. Supply with GSTN of another person, and then so we have suppression of turnover. But don't worry, both are covered. ISRDSTT. So two yes are covered. Any yes you can take. Both yes are covered here. Suppression of turnover is also covered, and supply with GSTN of another person is also covered, which means that this will not lead to imprisonment. So why you need to give importance to this ISRDSTT is that ISRDSTT do not lead to imprisonment. No imprisonment in this case. No imprisonment in this case. That's why. Okay. No imprisonment in this case. So in which case ISRDSTT. I for what? ISD default. And yes for what? Suppression of turnover. Okay, because another S is also there, supply with GSTN of another person. R refers to registration default. Only one R is there, that is registration default. ISRD. So D, we have multiple Ds. Dealing in goods liable for confiscation, disposal of goods while detention or seizure is operational, which will not lead to imprisonment. Disposal of goods while detention or seizure is operational will not lead to imprisonment. Okay. Then another is supply with GSTN of another person. Two T's. Actually we have three T's. So transportation default, tampering material evidence, and TDS or TCS default, which is covered here. RDSTT. Which T's are covered here? So that is TDS default and TCS default and transportation default. But tampering material evidence is an offence that leads to imprisonment. Understood? So biodiscredits TFT you need to remember. And those offences penalty will be 100% of the tax or ITC or refund or TDS or TCS or 10,000 rupees, whichever is higher. Okay. Whereas offences imprisonment, biodiscredits TFT minus RDSTT, ISRDSTT. Okay. And remaining offences includes even attempt to commit or abetting commission of these offences. You did not commit the offence, but you attempted to commit, or you are not the person who committed the offence. Okay, you abetted. So because of your support only that offence has been done. Okay, so that is known as attempt to commit or abetting commission of these offences. What is the imprisonment? You remember the amounts. You remember the amounts here. That is 125, 135. So period 125. Amount is 125 and period is 135. That is greater than 1 crore. Imprisonment up to 1 year. Greater than 2 crores, imprisonment up to 3 years. Greater than 5 crores, imprisonment up to 5 years. So remember 125, 135, 125, 135, 125, 135, 125, 135. Okay. So 125 is what amount? Greater than 1 crore, greater than 2 crore, greater than 5 crore. What is the imprisonment? So up to 1 year, up to 3 years, up to 5 years. And imprisonment, always minimum imprisonment of 6 months. Always there is a minimum imprisonment of 6 months, and this imprisonment plus fine, not or fine, plus fine. You need to pay and fine also. Okay. But this 135 is only in case of first time offence. If it is a subsequent offence, it will be always 5 years. Minimum 6 months, maximum 5 years plus fine. Okay. So therefore, in case of subsequent imprisonment, always it will be that 5 years. And whereas if it is books of accounts default, obstructing an officer from doing duty, or tampering material evidence, BOT. Generally in these three cases, it is very difficult to determine the amount involved in the offence. That's why in these three cases, the imprisonment will be 6 months or fine or both if it is first time. What if it is subsequent? No doubt it will be 5 years plus fine. Okay. So again I am repeating how to remember the imprisonment provision. Remember first BOT, books of accounts default, obstructing an officer from doing duty, tampering material evidence. So amount involved in the offence is very difficult to determine. That's why if it is first time offence, 6 months or fine. 6 months or fine or both. Okay. Up to 6 months or fine or both. There is no minimum imprisonment here. Up to 6 months or fine or both. Whereas any other offence means out of this list, out of this biodiscredits TFT minus RDSTT, so apart from this BOT, any other case, then you need to remember greater than 1 crore imprisonment up to 1 year, greater than 2 crores imprisonment up to 3 years, and greater than 5 crore imprisonment up to 5 years. And minimum imprisonment of 6 months, and all these are plus fine. This is in case of first time imprisonment. Whereas for subsequent imprisonment, it is always, in all cases, it will be 5 years plus fine. Minimum 6 months, maximum 5 years plus fine. Okay. This is with respect to imprisonment here. So offences that leads to imprisonment. Now we are discussing offences that leads to arrest. Offences that leads to arrest. First, offences that leads to penalties, biodiscredits TFT. Second, offences that leads to imprisonment is biodiscredits TFT minus ISRDSTT plus attempt to commit or abetting commission of these offences. Now we have offences that leads to arrest. Only 3 offences leads to arrest. Only 3 offences. IIC. And you need to remember one more important point is that collected an amount as tax is only an offence for imprisonment, whereas collected tax but not paid within 3 months is not an offence for imprisonment, because collected an amount as tax is only severe compared to collected tax not paid within 3 months. So he is supposed to collect the tax, so he collected, you can easily find that person. But collected an amount as tax, it is very difficult to find, that's a severe offence. So therefore, which offence out of these 2 C's? So there are 2 C's. Out of these 2 C's, which will come under imprisonment? Second one, collected an amount as tax. So see that note I have given there. Collected tax but not paid within 3 months is not an offence for imprisonment. But collected an amount as tax and not paid within 3 months is only an offence for imprisonment. Okay. So now, what are the 3 offences that leads to arrest? IIC, invoice default, very severe. Then ITC default. Then collected an amount as tax, not collected tax. First of all, collected tax not paid is not an offence for imprisonment. So arrest is also not applicable in that case. So which C we are talking about? Collected an amount as tax. So the third area that we are discussing is offences that leads to arrest. So there are 3 offences: invoice default, ITC default, and collected an amount as tax not paid within 3 months. So what will be the arrest? So the arrest will be applicable if the amount involved exceeds 2 crores. If the tax or ITC involved exceeds 2 crores, then that leads to arrest. And now we are discussing 4th. First we discussed offences that leads to penalty, second offences that leads to imprisonment, third offences that leads to arrest, and 4th we are discussing offences which are cognizable and non-bailable. So non-bailable offences. 3 offences, these 3 offences only, that is invoice default, ITC default, or collected an amount as tax and not paid within 3 months. These 3 offences only, if the amount involved in the offence exceeds 5 crores, then it is a cognizable and non-bailable offence. So which means the person can be arrested without any warrant and the arresting officer will not grant the bail. So that is these 3 offences, only when the amount exceeds 5 crores. What if the amount does not exceed 5 crores? So then it is not a cognizable offence. It is non-cognizable plus bailable. Okay. Now, so that non-bailable provisions plus arrest I have just given into a single table. So 3 offences. Offences specified in 122. That is invoice default, ITC default, collected amount as tax not paid within 3 months. Evasion of tax or ITC. When it exceeds 2 crores but does not exceed 5 crore. Arrest is there. In this case arrest is there, but it is a non-bailable and cognizable offence. And arresting officer can grant the bail. Whereas if the amount exceeds 5 crores, then it is a cognizable plus non-bailable, means arresting officer cannot grant the bail and he need to be produced before the magistrate within 24 hours and arrest can be made. Okay. And so therefore that is the difference between the 2 crores and 5 crore point. Okay. And if it is greater than 2 crore, imprisonment also will be different, up to 3 years and fine. When it is greater than 5 crore, imprisonment will be up to 5 years. This is in case of first time. Then any other offence that will not lead to arrest, and even it will not be called as cognizable offence. All other offences will be non-cognizable and bailable offences. But you may get a doubt, basic doubt. When arrest is not there, why we need to call it as non-cognizable and bailable? Actually not required. When arrest itself is not there, we don't have to call those offences as non-cognizable plus bailable offences because arrest itself is not there. But you just mention that as a note. That is, when arrest is not there, those offences will not be called as, non-cognizable and bailable offences. Okay, that point if you write, if at all question is asked, that will be sufficient. And then next is imprisonment and arrest. What is the difference? Arrest is different from imprisonment. Imprisonment does not require arrest. Imprisonment is serving in the prison and that imprisonment order is passed by the court. Okay, so the district court, etc. The civil court will be passing imprisonment order. But arrest is taking the person into custody for doing the interrogation. So arrest is different from imprisonment. Try to understand. Imprisonment do not require arrest. So that person will be called to the court and court will pass the imprisonment order. Then that person should serve the sentence in the prison. That is different. Whereas arrest is to get the evidence, to gather the evidence. We need to do the prosecution. So for that purpose, so we will be arresting a person. So that interrogation is known as arrest to get the evidence. So this is different and imprisonment is different. Now we completed 4 things. Offences that leads to penalty, and offences that leads to imprisonment, offences that leads to arrest, and offences that leads to cognizance of offence. That is cognizable and non-bailable offences. Okay. So this order, this way you need to remember. I simplified as much less as we can to remember. Then, so major important area is this only in this offences penalties chapter. And then we have other offences and penalties. 122 subsection 1a. 122 subsection 1a is a person who is beneficiary of invoice default, ITC default or ISD default. For example, what I am doing is that I created some fake registrations. So I took some details, Aadhaar card of various people, I created some fake registrations. When I created some fake registrations, so it is not in my name, it is in some other person's name. So, but these registrations are only for raising invoice and not for the purpose of paying any GST. Now, I identified some recipients, okay, some people, some business people who wanted credit and they asked me to give a credit of somewhere, 5 lakhs. Some 5 lakhs of credit they asked me to give. So, how I can give 5 lakhs of credit? Using these registrations which I have created. So, these registrations in that trader's name, I will be generating invoices and I will be filing GSTR1 in this registration name. But GSTR3B not filed. GSTR3B not filed. GSTR1 filed to the extent of 5 lakhs as tax. So therefore the recipients will be taking 5 lakhs as credit. Okay. But GSTR3B not filed. Now I will be getting a benefit. Say I got some 2 lakhs as benefit. So because I gave 5 lakh rupees worth of credit to that people, so they gave me 2 lakh rupees. So that is the benefit that I have retained. 2 lakhs I have retained. Now, department identified that person because that person has filed GSTR1, not filed GSTR3B. So they inquired with that person and therefore I am caught now. When I am caught, so now 5 lakhs will be collected from these registrations under invoice default. 5 lakhs will be collected from the traders who took the ITC under ITC default. But I am escaping. These people made the supply without GST, made the supply, that is, gave the invoice without supply. So therefore, invoice default on them, there will be penalty 5 lakhs, 100% of the tax, 5 lakhs. Whereas on the recipient who took the ITC, 5 lakhs, ITC default. But where on me the penalty is? There is no penalty on me now. That's where 122 subsection 1A came, wherein they are asking me to pay the penalty. I am the man behind the screen. I am the director. So therefore, I need to pay that. How much I need to pay? 5 lakhs. Not the benefit I retain, whatever is the benefit I passed on. Okay. Tax evaded or ITC availed or passed on, not the benefit enjoyed. Which means government will be getting 555, understood or not? So they will be getting 5 lakhs from supplier and 5 lakhs from the recipient and 5 lakhs from me and the person behind this screen, understood or not? So this 5 lakhs will be 5 lakhs, 15 lakhs will be collected by the department, you understood or not? As only penalty apart from tax. As only penalty apart from tax, it's only penalty I am talking about, okay? And that is section 122 subsection 1A. So you may get a question related to 122 subsection 1A for the forthcoming exam. It's an important area, okay? Then 122 subsection 2. 122 subsection 1 we completed, biodiscredits TFT penalty will be 100% of the tax or refund or ITC or TDS, TCS or 10,000 whichever is higher. Whereas 122 subsection 1A, a person who is engaged in, who is a beneficiary of invoice default, ITC default or ISD default. So whatever benefit that he has passed on to the other people by way of ITC, so that amount is the penalty. Whereas 122 subsection 2 is on a registered person in case of fraud and other than fraud. So this 122 subsection 2 penalty is connected with section 73 and 74. This 122 subsection 2 penalty is related to section 73, that is recovery under section 73-74. Recovery under section 73 or 74. Then only 122 subsection 2 penalty will come into picture. So when there will be recovery under 73 and 74, first of all, try to understand there are 5 situations. Non-payment of tax, short payment of tax, wrong availment of ITC, wrong utilization of ITC and erroneous refund. 5 cases. Again I am repeating. Non-payment of tax, short payment of tax, wrong availment of ITC, wrong utilization of ITC and erroneous refund. 5 cases, okay, 5 cases. Non-payment means what? You are required to pay but you did not pay. Short payment means what? You are required to pay but you paid less. Wrong availment of ITC, you should not take ITC but you took. And wrong utilization of ITC, you should not utilize it but you have used. And erroneous refund, you should not get the refund but you got the refund. So these 5 cases, recovery will be initiated by the department invoking section 73 and 74. First they will give a notice, then they will pass an order. Now in this case the penalty will be 122 subsection 2 and again this is divided into 2. Fraud or other than fraud. Fraud, collusion, willful misstatement, suppression of facts or contravention with an intent to evade payment of tax. So when it is fraud, mens rea is present, guilty mind is present. Whereas if it is other than fraud, there is no guilty mind, okay. If there is an intention to evade, the penalty will be 100% of the tax or 10,000 whichever is higher. If there is no intention to evade, means other than fraud, it will be 10% of the tax or ITC or refund or 10,000 whichever is higher, okay. So automatically 90% discount offer we will get. Why 90% discount offer if we don't have intention to evade? Now this is the place where everyone will try to debate. Sir, there is no intention to evade, sir. So don't invoke section 74. Please take section 73 because automatically the penalty will be coming down to 10%. You understood? So 100% of the tax is the penalty if it is 74 and if it is 73, the penalty will be 10% of the tax. So other than fraud is section 73, whereas fraud is section 74. Okay, section 74. See, I am not talking about the penalty under 73, 74. I am talking about penalty under 122 subsection 2. So this penalty under 122 subsection 2 will come whenever they invoke 73 and 74. Okay, that is recovery under 73, 74. Now, sir, there are some offences which are covered under both 122 subsection 1 and 122 subsection 2. For example, erroneous refund. Erroneous refund is an offence under 122 subsection 1. It is also an offence under 122 subsection 2. Then which will be applicable? Suppose if recovery is initiated under 73, 74, then 120 subsection 2 will come, 120 subsection 1 will not come. Suppose if 73 or 74 recovery is not initiated, then penalty under 120 subsection 1 will be coming. So 120 subsection 1 and 120 subsection 2, wherever there is a conflict that both are applicable, mutually exclusive. Any one is applicable, the other will not be applicable. So usually when they invoke 73, 74 recovery procedure, in that case only they will be levying a penalty under 120 subsection 2. Otherwise, in normal cases, if 73, 74 is not touched, then the penalty will be 122 subsection 1. For example, in case of section 67, goods are not accounted. Now that person is paying the tax and penalty voluntarily. In that case of penalty, it is not 122 subsection 2, it is 122 subsection 1 only. You understood or not? So that like that, whenever the department wanted to collect the penalty separately without initiating recovery, so then in that case they will be going for 122 subsection 1 penalty. Understood or not? 122 1, 122 1, 122 1, 122 1. When it will come? Only when there is only penalty which is recovered by the government or department without touching 73, 74. If they touch 73, 74, 122 subsection 2 only. 122 subsection 1 will not come. Okay, be careful in this place. Then next. So that is this. Hope you understood. What is the difference between imprisonment and arrest? I already explained to you. Arrest is, taking a person into custody. Okay, someone takes me, grabs me into the custody. Arrest. Okay, I am normal. I am going to the court and court is telling, why you have done the offence? Sir, sorry sir, I don't know sir, I did sir. And therefore they will sentence an imprisonment. No one will touch my collar. I will normally go to the prison. I will serve the imprisonment. You understood or not? So arrest is taking a person into custody. For example, what you did, you hit one girl, pa. You were in love with one girl and you got some angry. You hit that girl, pa. And now when you hit the girl, now you may escape. That's why police will first arrest you to take you into custody, and they will interrogate you, they will kick you, and they will be asking you, why did you kill that girl? No sir, by mistake I hit, she died. Like that you are telling. You are telling about homicide, but police is trying to frame this case as murder. Okay, and now they have taken you into custody to inquire, to interrogate you, and thereafter court will pass a imprisonment order. So depending upon what is that, you murdered or it is a homicide. Murder, severe, and homicide may be some 5 years or 6 years imprisonment. You understood or not? That is the difference between arrest and imprisonment. To prove the charges, arrest is required. So they need to interrogate, to gather the evidence. That's why arrest is required. And general query I had attended for November 20 batch. Should I get the revised book or classroom notes material? So get the revised book. Right now you don't have that much time. So get the revised book, that will be sufficient. Okay. Then see this. Section 122 subsection 3. Offences where the person is not directly involved in any evasion but may be party to the evasion, or if he does not attend summons or produce documents. What is this? On supporting character. Okay, on main character, it will be 122 subsection 1, 122 subsection 2. On supporting characters, I am asking my driver to transport the goods, and that goods, he knows that these goods are not having any documents, so he transported it. So on the transporter, for me transportation default. Goods are transported without valid documents. Transport default. But on the driver, there will be 122 subsection 3 penalty. Okay. And on owner, 122 subsection 1. On accountant, 122 subsection 3. You understood? So 122 subsection 3 is on the supporting characters. Like not on A1. So generally when there is a crime, A1, A2, A3 will be there. Na? On A1, the first one, it will be, so culprit number 1, it will be 120 subsection 1 or 120 subsection 2 or 120 subsection 1A. Whereas on culprit number 2 and 3, if 122 subsection 1A not applicable. See, actually 122 subsection 1A is also on a person other than the person who is involved directly in the offense. But 122 subsection 3 is also like 122 subsection 1A, the man behind the screen or those who support. And 122 subsection 3 penalty, when 122 subsection 1A is not applicable, 122 subsection 3 penalty will come, for example, drivers, accountants or office boys, etc. And on them, warehouse keepers, transporters, on them the penalty will be up to 25,000 rupees. Okay. And not directly involved in evasion but party to the evasion. This is one reason. Or he does not attend the summons. Summons were issued asking him to come and appear, but he did not appear. Or produce. He is asked to produce the documents, but that person is not producing the documents. In that case, up to 25,000 rupees. Okay. Then next. Section 123. So in 122 we completed. 122 we have 4. 122 1, 122 1A, 122 2 and 122 3. Okay. These 4 we completed. 123 and 124. That is failure to furnish information written under section 150 or failure to furnish any statistics under section 151. What is that? That is, say GST department is asking bank manager, one bank manager, say HDFC bank manager, that Mr. THARUN'S is trying to evade lot of GST, so give the bank statement of Mr. THARUN'S. Okay. Now the bank manager has to give the bank account statement for the period for which GST department has asked. If that bank manager fails to supply the information, bank statement of me, then on that bank manager there will be a penalty under 123. Next, 124. That is, GST department is asking a bank manager, I want the transaction summary of all people who made a deposit or withdrawal more than 10 lakhs in a particular month in your bank. I want the details. In your branch, account holders, those people who made a deposit or withdrawal more than 10 lakhs in a particular month, I want those people detail. So that details he need to submit, that is known as statistics. About 1% it is information, about many people it is statistics. Okay. So 150 is information, 151 is statistics. In case of 150, failure to provide information, so the penalty will be 100 rupees per day, subject to a maximum of 5,000 rupees. And failure to furnish statistics, if it is normal cases, means first time, up to 10,000. If it is a continuing offense, repeatedly he is doing the same, so then it will be 100 rupees per day, subject to maximum 25,000, not 5,000, 25,000. See the difference. In case of 123, always 100 rupees per day, subject to maximum 5,000. 100 rupees per day for what, sir? Period of delay, whatever is the delay period. So if you are not giving the information, they will give a notice, and after that notice we need to give reply. So if you are not giving on time, so then only 123 will come for the period of delay. 124 also, first time, if it is first time, up to 10,000, otherwise it is 100 rupees per day for the failure period, subject to a maximum of 25,000 rupees. So this is 124 penalty. Then 125 general penalty, I told you, whenever there is an offense for which no separate penalty is prescribed, then general penalty will be applicable under section 125. Okay, so up to this we completed penalties. 122, 123, 124 and 125. These are the 4 sections which deals with total penalties under GST. Okay. Then next, goods are seized for the person committing the offence as security, but for the person covered under 122(3), what happens if he doesn't pay? But for the person covered under 122(3), what happens if he doesn't pay? If penalty is not paid, they will recover. They will recover. Simple. How to recover, sir? First, they will seize your bank account, freeze your bank account. Thereafter, they will be taking away your assets, if there is any assets that they will attach, or they will be putting a poster in the locality where you are residing that this person has to pay this much amount. If anyone has to pay this person any amount, don't pay, you pay it to us, like the department will put. And that is how generally it will be recovered. The recovery proceedings will be there. Okay, so recovery will come, but many people are escaping from recovery. See one person, great human being, who is a playboy, Vijay Mallya, somewhere he went, and what government can do? We can't do. Suppose if the person has absconded, we can't do anything. So, but they have to pay. What I am discussing as a teacher is like we have to comply with the provisions. What will happen if you are not comply with the provisions? Then don't ask me to speak like a criminal. I don't want to, because I can speak. I don't want to. So what happens if you cannot pay? You can escape. Simple. You don't have to pay. Then section 126. No penalty for minor offences. That is, if the amount involved in the offence does not exceed 5,000. What is the amount involved means? Tax or ITC. Does not exceed 5,000. Then no penalty. Okay, fine. What is it here? 5,000 rupees. For that and all, why to put penalty? Okay, go, escape. Or which can be easily rectifiable and made without a fraudulent intent or gross negligence. So a person has to display GSTIN on the name board. He did not display GSTIN, but he is a registered person. So non-displaying of GSTIN on the name board may lead to a general penalty 125. For this, is it easily rectifiable or not? Yes, it is easily rectifiable. We can paste, correct or not. So then, in that case, so why we need to levy a penalty? So in that case also he can escape. But remember, section 126 is applicable only when there is up to penalty. Up to penalty, wherever, whichever section, they use the word up to 10,000, up to 25,000, like that. In those places only they can invoke 126, because it is up to their discretion. Up to 25,000 means 1 rupee also up to 25,000 rupees. Is it clear or not? Up to 25,000 means even 1 rupee is also up to 25,000 rupees. So 1 rupee also can be collected as a penalty. So it is up to whose discretion? Officer's discretion. So in which places officer's discretion is there? Not in 122 subsection 1. 122 subsection 1 where it is up to. It is not up to. It is 10%, 100% of the tax or 10,000 whichever is higher. There is no up to. And 122 subsection 1 also no up to. 122 subsection 2 also no up to. 122 subsection 3 there is up to. Up to, correct? Up to is there. 122 subsection 3 there is up to. So in case of 122 subsection 3 we can apply 126. We can apply 126. So if at all department levies, you can tell, sir, it is a mistake which is easily rectifiable, sir. So therefore, so please avoid this penalty, and that penalty can be avoided by the department. Okay. Then 123, it is not up to. 124, yes. In case of 124 also it is up to, in first case. Whereas in case of 125 also it is up to. Okay. So in these 3 cases only 126 can be applied. What are the 3 cases where 126 can be applied? 122 subsection 3 and 125, 124 and 125. In these 3 cases only you can apply 126. So in 126 there are 2 points. That is, no penalty for minor offence. Minor offence means when the amount involved in the offence does not exceed 5,000 rupees, that is tax or ITC. Or Second point, where the mistake is easily rectifiable and made without a fraudulent intent. So in these two cases, the penalty can be reduced or the penalty can be completely waived off. Section 127, where proper officer is of the view that a person is liable to pay penalty and the same is not covered under any other proceedings, he may levy penalty after giving reasonable opportunity of being heard. Only for levying penalty also they can give a notice and they can recover the penalty. Tax is not payable, only for recovering penalty. For example, obstructing an officer from doing duty. In that, what is the tax amount here? What is the tax amount? Obstructing an officer from doing duty, what is the tax amount? There is no tax amount. What tax amount is there? By obstructing an officer from doing duty, there is no tax amount. So therefore, only for levying penalty can they invoke 122 subsection 1 and collect the penalty alone separately? Yes, that's what 127 says. Yes, it is possible. Then 128, government may by notification waive in part or full any penalty referred to in section 122, 123, 125. Sir, you said few penalties cannot be waived. That is by the officer, pa. This is by the government. How can you stop government from waiving off? You belong to which alien country here? Okay, some alien planet or what you belong to. When government itself is coming and telling, we want to waive penalty, what is your problem? Let them waive, no? So, 122, 123, 125 or any late fee for delay in filing return. So, that can be waived off by the government. So, before election time, whenever they wanted to waive off, so they will be waiving off because that is one of the key success factor for the purpose of elections. So therefore they will do that. Last time also they did. And many people ask, already I paid by mistake, not knowing I paid a penalty. Will you give me the refund? No, sorry, we will not give. Whatever you paid is paid. But those who did not pay, they are only required for us. We require only those people who did not pay, because from them no need to pay penalty, because that will convert into votes. You understood or not? But those who paid, those who obeyed by the law, nothing, 1 rupee also will not be given to them back. So 122 or 123 or 124 any late fee other than 124. Other than 124. 124 cannot be waived by the government. 124 cannot be waived by the government. What is that? Statistics. Failure to supply statistics. Then section 133, officer engaged under this act willfully discloses any information or the contents of any return otherwise than in execution of his duties. That is, willfully he is disclosing some information here. Okay, so some sensitive information is being shared by the officer. So officers are coming for a search. How many movies you would have seen? So one peon or office boy from the income tax department will call, sir, search is going to come to your place. Now these people will immediately pack all the things in one bag and they will be sending, and hero will come and take over that bag. So you have seen lot of South Indian movies now. So therefore that person who is an officer discloses some information, then the penalty will be up to 25,000 rupees or imprisonment of 6 months or both. Understood? Clear? In case of section 127, can general penalty under 125 apply, sir? Depends. If there is any specific case, like 122 it is covered, 122 1 will come. If that is not there, then 125 will come. Okay. So 133 is on the officer. The penalty will be up to 25,000 rupees or imprisonment of 6 months or both. Okay. So this is about offences and penalties that we have completed here. Okay.